I'm Dave VanAntwerp. It's my pleasure to be here at the Whittlin Carvers talking about CNC carving today. And this is my home environment, my wood shop. And we're going to be talking about carving wood using an electronic or electric CNC machine instead of hand-held hammers, chisels, that kind of equipment. This is a CNC machine that I built about 10 years ago. Hand built by myself in my shop, and I built every bit of this. It's not a kit. I had the base of it built at a welding shop. I bought the parts, and these are aluminum parts I bought down in Indiana. The pinions came from Missouri. The motors came from Seattle. These rails came from scrapyard. Bits and pieces here and there. I had a lot of help from a lot of guys that knew what they were doing. But the way that a CNC works, this is a handheld router here that's on a frame, and these are motors. This motor here moves the x-axis back and forth this way, and these motors, this one and this one, move it back and forth front to back. That's called the y-axis. And then there's a motor up here that moves the router up and down. That's called the z-axis. So between the x, y, and z-axis, they can move in most any direction. And the way that we start is these tools over here can be used to design a program here. Like for instance, if I want to design a cribbage board, I can make an oval using this little tool here, draw an oval, make little circles here, use a text tool to put a name in. I can go use an image here and then draw out what I want to carve and make a design here. And these are all tools that can be used to carve the design that I want. It's just an incredible, powerful tool. There's a lot of math involved, a lot of computer work involved. This screen right here, you'll see in a minute, is used to tell the computer where to go on the table. You're going to go up and down, as you can see, back and forth to tell it where you're locating it on the wood. And right here, this tool, this is the piece of wood that we're going to use to make that cribbage board. This is the bit, and it's going to tell the bit where back and forth, up and down, locating the computer or locating the bit on the wood so that it knows exactly where to carve. So you got the y-axis going this way, the x-axis going this way, the z-axis going this way. It has to know all those coordinates in order to know exactly how to carve. This is an example of a cribbage board that was carved. This lady asked me to carve one for her husband who had been in the service. So I was able to get a model of the aircraft carrier that he was on. And a model, in this case, is actually a computer file that has a whole bunch of numbers on it, that tells the computer or the machine exactly where to go up and down and back and forth in order to carve out the shape of that aircraft carrier. And then, so it carved the dish, and then it carved the aircraft carrier in the dish, and then it carved this circle or the oval, and it carved all these little holes in here. And I had to lay all that out, but the software, I'm not quite that smart. You have to be a little bit smart to use a computer, but really the software is incredible. And I was able to carve all this out. And then I got these challenge coins and made little pockets to glue those into. And so it came out really well. This shows a little bit close up. When you get what we call the model or that computer file that allows you to carve that, like in this case, the aircraft carrier, it also allows you to turn that. You can turn it a little bit more this way, that way, end way, so you get just the right 3D effect that you would like to get on that. So it's just really powerful software. But when I talk to wood carvers or wood workers, the first thing they all say is, I've got to get one of these CNC machines. But the first thing I say is, unless you want to do a lot of computer work and a lot of mathematical work, you may want to give that a second thought. This one is about a part of a 4-foot long carving, and you'll see all of it in a minute. But this one is relatively short, or not very tall, but it's very long. It's about a 4-foot long piece. And it was originally designed for a fireplace mantle, but it was, I did it for a house. There was a doorway, a long arched doorway in a house that didn't have much space, but they wanted a wildlife carving to go above the doorway. And so this one was really pretty cool. And again, we call it a model, but it's really a computer file that has a lot of numbers, and it tells the router where to go in terms of width, height, and depth in order to carve out and carve away a lot of wood and leave the deer and the trees and make a dish behind it. Here you see on the computer table, or on the CNC table, you see the completed piece. And here you see holding it, and then it'll go above the doorway up here. So this is the piece of cherry. It came out pretty cool. That was about a 7.5-hour carve to carve it out, and then you had to finish it after that. That was a fun piece. This is kind of a popular one. The eagle is a real popular carving, and this one is a little bit more complex piece. You carve the eagle to begin with, and then in the back of the piece you carve out to put the clockworks behind it. The eagle is inset, then there's oak here, and then there's cherry here, and the three pieces are put together and to make a clock, and then somebody's name is carved in here. So that's kind of a neat piece. There was a realtor that had several of these made for his clients. That was a fun project. This one is a wedding for a wedding anniversary, and these are wedding rings, names, date, and it's to look like a book. And this, again, the software allows us to carve the book, the pages of the book, and cut out the shape, and then also we call it skew, the words to kind of look like they're the shape of the pages. But the shape of the pages kind of goes up and down in a ripple to simulate the shape of the book. This is kind of a popular one. The white stuff on the back is just a fabric that it's sitting on, but this is a piece of wood, a carving of a wolf with an eagle, but it shows the feathers and the wolf down here. And normally you might put that in a frame, or you can also carve it with a piece of wood, leave the wood protruding around the edge to make a natural frame. This is an interesting one. When you carve, you need to think about the wood and then the shape. And in this particular case, I carved, this is called spalted maple, and spalting is when a tree dies, but before it rots, there's a fungus that comes into the tree, and it makes these lines. And in this case, I carved the freighter, and because of the lines in the wood, you couldn't see the shape of the freighter. And I go, well, what am I going to do now? I can't really see the boat, and so I had to paint the freighter to show it up. And so I painted the freighter so that it would show in the spalted maple. So that was kind of fun. But again, it's a carved boat, but I didn't do it by hand. I did it on the CNC machine. Then I did the holes, did the lines, and then I was able to cut it out, and I did all that on the CNC. So it was kind of fun. That's probably about, I would say, about a 2.5 hour I call it a cut or carve on the CNC by the time I did all of that. By the time I drilled all the holes, did the carving, and did the cutting out on the CNC. Then I did the routing, the rounded edges, I could do on the CNC, but I do that on the router table. It's just a lot easier. This was a picture. Somebody gave me a picture of a dog, And then I did the rounded edges. I created the dish, and I had an artist create for me the dog from the picture. And they were able to, there's a software package that the artist uses to kind of rough out, and on their computer, rough out the dog, and then they go back in and do a lot of the detail work that makes the dog, to bring out like the hairs and the collar and the mouth and the nose to give a lot more detail, and then a carve. And that's quite a long, I say a long carve, it's not a long carve, it's to be maybe 3-4 hour carve. But you get a lot of detail, and that's all one carve then from this whole dish and the dog. When you put it on there, you do like what we call you can either do a roughing pass and then a finish pass, or you can just do a finish pass when you're doing a dish. You can do it all at one time, but it's like a 4-hour carve, and then that makes a nice, really nice plaque. And here's the detail work. You can see how much detail is in that. And that was about that's been several years, but at that point, that artist, I think, charged like $165 to do that file. And when I think of, it would be fun to be able to do that, but for $165, I couldn't begin to do all that work to create that file. There's just a lot of work to get that detail in there. And you got to keep in mind, that's a computer file. You know, that artist spent a lot of time bringing out, making the nose a little bit higher, making the eyes a little bit deeper, making those hairs stick out, putting those hairs a little deeper. And then for me, then what I did was to, when I was finishing, then I applied a little bit of finish, but then I I went over to Repcolite, the paint store, and I got a little bit of glaze, a darker glaze, and I put just a little bit of darker glaze in the deeper spots to bring out the character of the deeper spots. And so that really made it look nice. And then here's another model. This model is a bass, and so this cribbage board made an oval dish and created this bass. And that one came out really nice. That's walnut. Walnut's one of my favorite woods to work with. This was an interesting one. This model came from, this was created because a young couple from the West Coast went down on a excursion boat to the Antarctica, and they got engaged there, and this was a wedding gift to them. And so I looked for they wanted penguins, or their grandpa wanted penguins, and so I found a model of a penguin, but I couldn't find two penguins, so I found one, made one bigger, one smaller, flipped it around, and then with the software package, I was able to make a background then, and then found a border that I could put on there and made this oval. But he wanted something that he could give them that they couldn't get anywhere else for their wedding. So it came out really, really well. So that was a fun one. But that's created entirely from that software. Here's another example of a dog. This corgi was sent from a gentleman out in Portland, Oregon, and that's his corgi dog, and he wanted to know what I could do with that. So this is the photo that we started with. Now you'll see that I did a cribbage board. So this is the photo, and then here's the corgi. The trouble with a corgi, or if you were to do, gosh, what's that little black and white dog? Anyway, the color is such an important part of the corgi dog that it's difficult to do an accurate representation. But this is the corgi, and then did a cribbage board, and he specifically wanted a 4-track as opposed to a 3-track cribbage board. So, and that's the corgi, and then you can see a 3D, so you can see how the corgi sticks. The nose sticks out, and then the eyes are down, and then the side is down in the dish, and so that's a 3D on the corgi. And there again is a little bit more closer up. This is one a lady asked me. She wanted a little higher gloss, but their family name is Wolf, and so she wanted to know, can you do a plaque that we could put on the wall? This is walnut, and so she wanted to know, can you do a wolf we could put it on the wall for a wolf. And so I did this one. This one has two wolves, and there's trees in the background. This is kind of close up, but a wolf in the background, and a little one in the foreground. And then this is a little bit of a recess around the edge to give it some 3D, and it's down in a dish. And then I did another one for her that's a single wolf. I don't believe I have a picture of that, but yeah, I did a series of about 2 or 3 different wolves for her. That was a fun one. She really liked those. This is an example of CNC work. You see what I do? I do a lot of plaques and signs and things like that, but this is an example of something entirely different. And this is more of a treasure chest, and this is made up of a series of panels. So this is a panel, this is a drawer, this is a panel, this is a panel, the top, and it's all a series of panels, all done on the CNC, and it came out really cool. This is, I don't know why I didn't get a picture of this one, same thing, but it came out really, really good. There's a lot of hours of work into this one, but it looks like it's a lot of hand carving on it, and it's, I don't know which takes longer, whether hand carving would be longer or this is, but it came out really, really well. But it's a beautiful carved chest. It's just gorgeous. This is an example of inlay work done on the CNC. So this is, they're the same woods, but this is the negative and positive. So the same design, same woods. This is the light wood within the background with the dark wood inlaid, and this is the dark wood in the background with the light wood inlaid. But these are solid woods. These are both done on the CNC with a router bit, and then one wood glued into the other wood. And it took a little while to learn how to do those. They're a little bit intricate, especially you get into some of these smaller pieces. And they're a little bit tough to do, but they're a lot of fun, and they look absolutely gorgeous. This is one, I've done these for a couple of veterinarians. They're kind of fun. The dog and cat, they're real popular. Cutting board with the groove around it, names. This is all, again, is all solid wood. This is maple. These are walnut. They're, again, all wood, no laser work and nothing else. It's all inlay. They're a lot of fun. This is, again, is another inlay. This is walnut, all walnut. Even you can see how fine you can get. All these are all inlay walnut, and I got my hand on this one so you can kind of gauge by the size of it. These are stainless steel handles. This is probably called a charcuterie board. I also put a hanger on the back of this because a lot of people like to hang these up as opposed to throwing them in a drawer. But charcuterie boards are real popular, but it's all walnut and maple. I think, let's see. This is just, again, to show you how detailed they can get. These are very, very little fine tips, points on these. And it takes a lot of care to make sure that everything gets inlaid properly. This is a real popular one I do quite a lot of, is the state of Michigan. And I gauge how well I'm doing on these by this Traverse City and Old Mission Peninsula up here. If we can see Old Mission Peninsula and if Isle Royal and the islands and the rivers, and if all of these little features come out correctly, then I know I've done a fairly good job. But this is a real popular inlay that I do. This is a walnut board, this is maple, and all these inlays parts are maple. Real popular board that I do a lot of requests for this, gifts especially. There's a close-up. All the little islands all show up. Garden Peninsula, Mackinac Island. I think this is Beaver Island. I think this is Beaver Island. I think this is, I think that's Beaver Island. Can't remember now. This was for a gentleman down in Kalamazoo. He had never had anything custom made before, and he asked me if I could do, he participates in brisket barbecue competitions. And this is a big board. This is a heavy board. This is maple, this is walnut, and he wanted to know if it might be possible to personalize it somehow, and his name is Michael Eagle. And he said, do you think you could maybe put something like an E on it? And I go, well, certainly. I said, but would you like an eagle on it? He goes, could you even do that? I go, well, certainly. I said, would you like your name on it? He goes, wow, could you do that? So certainly. So we did one with, so I did one with his name on it, Michael Eagle, and the stripes and the groove on it, and he was absolutely delighted. So he's showing that now. What I don't know is he actually using it at his barbecue competitions, or is he just showing it at his barbecue competitions? For some reason, I can't imagine him putting barbecue on that. I'm not sure. The backside is plain. It doesn't have anything on it. So I'm not sure. He might be flipping it over and doing it that way. I'm not sure. But that was a fun one. Yeah, Michael Eagle. And then walnut and maple. This was for a farm, the cutting board for a farm. This is walnut, and this is, so you got walnut here, and this is a Highland cattle. I raise Highland cattle on my farm. These are friends of ours. They raise Highland cattle on their farm. And I forget why I did this. It was some kind of a special event. They were having a party, and so I did this for them, and they were pretty happy with that. But I just love doing these inlays. They're a lot of fun. And this was a lady who has some family who lives in Texas, and I don't remember exactly why, but she couldn't decide which team that she wanted to do something for the family members, but she couldn't decide which team to do it. So she goes, you know, I got Dallas or Houston, and I don't know which team to do. And I go, well, let's do both of them. So we did both, kind of like the house divided in Michigan. So we did both, and yeah, she was just really happy with that. So this is walnut, this is maple, and we did both teams, and she was just super excited about that. So that worked out well. So, Ken, anything we missed? The favorite woods I like. Well, I like maple, and I like walnut, and I like cherry, and mahogany looks nice, but it's hard to work with. So I have mahogany, and I've used mahogany, but I stay away from it because it's a little hard. It's hard to finish, and it's a little hard to work with. So that's not my favorite one. I tend not to use oak because it's open grain. So I tend not to use oak, but maple and walnut and cherry are my favorites. How do I locate people for models? Actually, it's not difficult to locate people for models because I'm on. First of all, you can buy some models online for CNC work. You can buy models online. You can either like from Etsy or eBay or, pardon me? The models that are complete, you can buy them online, or you can buy, there are artists, and I'm in two or three groups of CNC users, and so there are artists that are available to groups that will do work for us too. And so we recommend to each other. There are also some artists that specialize in certain types of models that do well. And so, yeah, it's not a problem finding people to create models, and that works out well. There are also a lot of people who try to do their own models, CNC users who try to do their own models. It's fun to make your own model, and you try to do it the cheap way. Most of us tend to give up on that. It doesn't work well. So, let's see if we can go back and find that. This one. The wood itself on this particular one is probably about an inch thick. The model the model itself is probably about 3/4 of an inch on this. Most of the time when I carve a model, it's about anywhere from 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch. And in fact, I think this particular one, the wood itself is about an inch, and I'm going to say that the model itself, this carving is about 5/8 of an inch, probably deep.
What is the maximum that you could get?
Well, the maximum depth, it depends on the machine. There's a big difference in CNC machines. You know, they run all the way from small CNC machines at, say, 16 inches square on up to 8 feet by 10 feet. And so Hayworth uses those to make their desktops that are 1.5 inches deep. But the small ones are quite small. And mine, I could carve something. The bit is probably the limiting factor on most of them. You're maybe 1.5 inches deep would be about as deep as you'd want to go. But yeah, probably an inch. But the deeper you go, the more stress you're putting on the machine. Yeah.
How big a piece of wood can you get in your machine width-wise?
My machine could handle a 4-foot wide piece, but I'm old. I don't lift 4-foot wide pieces onto my machine. So I built mine with that in mind. When I built mine, I built it with in mind that I could put a 4x8 sheet of plywood on there. But or MDF, I soon found out that I don't want to put a 4-foot piece on there. So I tend to limit mine to about 24 by 30 maybe.
And of course, length would be endless.
Well, lengthwise, it's open. So you can go as long as you want, but you can slide it through. You can do what you call tiling on these to lengthwise. So I have done, for instance, some countertops for some builders where they want to have this cut out here and that, like a sink cut out here, and then a little piece cut out here, and then something else cut out there. I can move it through and cut out a piece here and there, or I can do a sign that's 8 feet long, but do this piece and then slide it through and cut out that piece and then that piece. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, for me, I mean, I love it. For one, my wife says it's great because it keeps me off the streets and out of trouble. And she loves it because she knows right where I am and what I'm doing. So, you know, I thoroughly enjoy it. But you know, health-wise, it's great. My doctor says it's done great for me because health-wise, the health benefits of being out there and being active and keeping active have been great. You know, it keeps my mind very active, and I have to calculate and use the computer, and so there's been a lot of benefits that way.
And back it way up, what kicked this project off?
Yeah, right. You're trying to get me to go back and talk about what got me started?
Yes.
Yeah, well, because I had a brain tumor, right? I got started because I had a brain tumor. Yeah, I had a brain tumor and I had to do something. So, yeah, so I you know, and the doctor said you got to get something to get your brain going, right? So I went back for my checkup. I had been sitting home in a rocking chair reading Wood magazine, and I read about these guys that were making CNC machines out of pipes, gas pipes, and skate wheels. So I said, I can do that. My wife said, no, you can't. I go, yes, I can. So I went back to the doctor, and he said, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to build a CNC machine. He goes, really? I was thinking more like maybe crossword puzzles. But so I started. It took me a year to build this, but to this day, he says, I can't believe how much progress you made. So, yeah, so it's been fantastic.